Growing yam in sack is a new way of growing yams now. Traditionally, we've been using mouths or heap. Some time ago, a subscriber once asked me a question. I'll put the question up there now. That yam in sacks or yam in heaps, which one is actually better? So in this video, we are going to look at 14 parameters or yardstick to differentiate between planting yam in sacks and planting yam in heap. Mind you, I'm not going to take sides in any of this. I'm only going to be a moderator. You are actually the judge that will make the decision later as to which is actually better. But for me, I'm definitely going to give you my own recommendations. So let's dive into it right away. Number 14 is maximizing space. Now, this is the reason why many people like to plant in bags, because it actually helps to maximize space. If we take a space of 100 by 100 feet, for example, we can barely get up to about 500 heaps of yams if we are planting in heap. But if we are using bags, we are definitely going to get up to about 700 or 800 bags, if not more. So talking about space, yam in sack remains the best. Number 13, initial cost of setup. If we look at the initial cost of setup, comparing yam in sack and yam in heap, let me shock you here. You will need more money to set up yam in sack compared to yam in heap. Don't be surprised. I'll tell you why. Now, let us do some analysis. If you want to set up yam in sacks, now there are some things you will need. For example, you will need the sacks. You will need soil, and you need to put soil in the sack. So if you look at the amount you spend buying sacks, especially when it is a commercial yam in sack farming, it is more capital intensive in terms of initial setup. Now, if you are going to buy bags or sacks, for example, because it's not all of them you are going to get for free. If you are going to buy sack, an average amount of sack is about 100 naira. If it is too cheap, maybe 50 naira. Now, if you are going to set up 2,000, multiply that by that amount. You're also going to get soil. For some persons, it is very difficult for them to get soil. They have to get the right soil, mobilize the soil to the place where they want to put the yam in sack and all that. And all this costs money and also labor to fill in the sack, take the sack to the final place where you want to plant yams. Putting all this together, if you look at the money, is far more compared to planting a heap. Let's go to planting a heap. Planting a heap, of course, you know that the same land preparation is for both of them. You have prepared your land for both of them, as the case may be. But when it comes to planting in heap, all you just need to do is to get your laborers to start making the heap. And an average of 3 to 5 minutes is what is required to make one heap. I've uploaded a video on how to make the heap before. So if you look at the cost of even making the heap is barely up to 100 naira. I spend an average about 50 naira per heap. If you are going to compare that cost with setting up in sack, you will now see that the initial setup amount for sack is far more than that of heaps. Number 12 is staking. Now, let's look at staking for yams in sack. For yam in sack, you require fewer amount of stakes because you have the bags all put together in the same environment. So you can cluster so many bags and use just one particular stick. For yam in heap, you will need more sticks to stake compared to for yam in sack. Although this is a slight disadvantage for yam in sack because eventually you end up crowding these sacks around one particular stick. But in a nutshell, for staking, it is easier with yam in sack. Number 11 is weeding. For yam in sack, it is very easy to weed. All you just need to do is to hand pick. But for yam in heap, you definitely spend more money weeding because you weed an average of about 3 times before the harvest of your yam. Number 10 is watering. Let's consider watering for both yam in heap and yam in sack. First, I will start with the yam in heap. For yam in heap, you basically don't need to do so much because it is usually rain assisted, as it is natural irrigation. The rain will help you to irrigate. So it's dependent mainly on the rainfall pattern in that environment. You could irrigate, but it's usually not too necessary except you have a natural source of irrigation. But it's not so for yam in sack. Now, during the rainy season, during the wet season, even if it is raining, you still need to assist your yam in sack in terms of irrigation, because the surface area where water enters the bag is very small and the soil inside might be hard. That is why it is always important you check every now and then. So putting all this together, you discover that irrigation needs to be done for yam in sack. You need to assist it with irrigation, and this is extra cost and extra labor, without which you will not get something reasonable. And number 9 parameter is off-season planting. I want you to know that off-season planting is when you plant not within the conventional rainy season. Off-season planting favors yam in sack because you can plant anytime, because you can actually irrigate yourself and you can determine the irrigation. Like this yams that are planted in sack now, I'm actually irrigating them myself. There's a way I do it, so I can decide to plant any time in the year. It is favorable for me. But I can't do this with yam in the heap. So yam in heap does not go well with off-season planting, but for yam in sack, it's a go. Number 8 is fertilizer application. For yam in sack, it is very technical because you require skills to be able to apply fertilizer for yam in sack. If not, because of the confinement of the roots, the fertilizer, especially NPK, can damage the roots and the vines will just die. But for yam in the heap, it is pretty easy. Even a rookie can do that. It requires experience, and again, it requires some form of labor because you have to apply several times for yam in sack compared to yam in heap where you just do like 2 times and you are done. But for yam in sack, almost every 2 weeks because you have to give them in aliquot. Number 7 has to do with the duration of growth. Duration of growth. For yam in heap, I don't do more than 6 months, especially for white yams. But for yam in sack, I stay a little bit above 6 months. For some reasons, yam in sack, they tend to stay a little bit longer. I think more researches will have to be done on that, why that is actually so. For those who have experience about it, you know that for yam in sack, you wait a little bit more compared to yam in heap. So in terms of time for growth or duration of growth, yam in sack stays a little longer than yam in heap. But I would like to know your experience in the comment section. Number 6 is rodent attack. This is a major problem for yam farmers, especially for those who plant in the heap. I've discovered that rodents have a way of reducing the market value of tubers that you plant in the heap. You could just have very large tubers, like the one you see me put in this picture. You just see large tubers that have been destroyed almost completely by rodents. But for yam in sack, this is very rare, except when it is exposed down. Maybe the bag is broken down, then you have that. But it is not common. So for rodent attack, yam in bag is better than yam in heap. Number 5 is miscropping or interplanting yams with other crops. Which is better, bags or heap? To maximize profit, farmers do plant other crops alongside with yams. For planting yam in heap, it is more favorable because you have other spaces where you can plant other crops. Some plant melon, maize, pepper, pumpkin, even cassava. This will help them to get more money at the end of the day. But for yam in sack, this is a little bit rare. It is a little bit difficult because though you can still plant, I have experimented on the way I planted cucumber and all that. If you are going to do that, you have to plant crops that can mature before the yam actually get mature, because if you are going to harvest, you are certainly going to destroy the whole bag and everything that is around it. So you could intercrop some things, but you make more money with yam in heap. Number 4 is mechanization. Of course, because we want to make profit in farming, mechanization is actually the goal. Now with yam in heap, mechanization is better. It's easy for us to mechanize yam, and if there are some machines, there are some tractors, there are some plants that can be used to create heap, create holes for yams and all that. But as far as yam in sack is concerned, we don't have any machine that can help us do that for now. So in terms of mechanization, I just decided to add this point. Yam in heap is better than yam in sack. Number 3, effect on environment or environmental pollution. Let's really look at this. For yam in sacks, most of these sacks are actually not biodegradable. They cannot really be broken down. Although some of them, like this one, they can break, they can disintegrate, but they cannot really be incorporated into the environment, into the soil. There are other ones that are just pure polythene and all that. This is still a challenge. Although this is an evolving trend, it is still a challenge. For yam in heap, everything basically is organic. You don't use bags and all that. So in terms of the effect on environment, yam in heap is better because almost everything is organic. Here, until such a time where we have bags that are biodegradable, of course, which is also a business opportunity for those who might be interested. Getting bags that can just span a period of 9 months, get integrated into the soil. That's something for the future. But as for now, yam in heap is better than yam in sack in terms of the effect on environment. So I want to hear your comments also. Number 2 is ease of harvesting. This is my harvester that I normally use to harvest yams from the heap, but I don't need this mainly for bags. It's very easy to harvest from bags. Like as you can see some of these bags, all you just need to do is to just tear them open and bring out your yam. Even if the soil might be hard, there's a way you just do it. You just wet with water after some time and you just harvest. So it is easier to harvest from bag compared to harvesting from the heap. For heap, you spend more money because you have to look for laborers and can take them days to even harvest a few. So harvesting from bag is easier than harvesting from heap. The number 1 that we've been waiting for is the size of the tubers as well as the seed yams that you harvest. Which is better or which is bigger for yam in heap, yam in bag? We all know mainly that the ones we get from heap is usually bigger for obvious reasons. There is room for expansion. The vines are not crowded, so they can be exposed to the sun and all that. Even though you are losing space, but you get it in terms of sizes of tubers. I have harvested yams that weigh up to 31 kg from heap. But my biggest so far for sack is about 7.25 kg. I hope to beat my record the next time. So in terms of heap and sack, the sizes of tubers from heaps, they are usually larger. And even the seed yams, they are usually larger. So you see, you need to weigh the pros and cons. Although there's another argument for yam in sack. For example, if I have in a particular space 400 yams, 400 heaps of yams, and I'm going to get large tubers, at best I will get 400 tubers. But if I'm getting from sack, from the same space, let's assume I have 800 tubers, irrespective of the size, some will say it is better to have more tubers than the sizes of tubers. It's up to you. That is why I said I'm just a moderator. You are the judge. Now we have looked at these 14 parameters. What is your decision? But here is my recommendation. If you have little space, or you have concrete floor, or you want to grow few amount of yams, grow yam in sacks. It is very, very profitable, since the goal is that we are ensuring food security. For me, every household should actually grow yams because it is the commonest tuber that we eat in this part of the world. For those who want to do commercial yam farming and you have very large space, here's my recommendation for you. You should do both of them. Grow both in soil and in bags, because that is what I do, in order for you to harness the advantages of both together. Now, for me, where I have planted in heap, those spaces in between, I put my bags. So I'm harnessing the advantage of those in bags and those in heap. So as of now, we are not really going to say that yam in bag is a replacement for yam in heap. For me, It complements, not necessarily a replacement. Now, even though we have said that larger tubers are grown in a heap compared to that of sack, but it will interest you to know that for me, I have been able to, like I've said earlier in this video, I've been able to grow up to over 7 kg size of yam in sack. That is actually a huge amount to grow inside sack. There are 10 secrets I normally use. So I want you to watch this my next video talking about the 10 top secrets I use in growing extra large tubers of yams. See you in that next video.